Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Talking Point, back and better than ever. Oh, we would be. However, my co-host is not able to be with me this morning. Now, for those who don't know, I failed to remember this yesterday, but our election coverage was brought to you here at WSN by the producing of the one and only Mr. Keita Shah. So, let's congratulate him for, well, just how well everything went, particularly yesterday, of which I was directly a part of. And I hope that those of you at home who were able to watch the marathon episode of Talking Point enjoyed all the coverage. However, now that the political reality show is somewhat over, we do have to get back into the rest of what's going on in TNT. With that said, of course, today is Wednesday, so Karen Shishera will be joining me later, where she will weigh in, whole show to herself, on the results of the election. Of course, we've heard from some of the political leaders, some of the members of the various political parties, as well as political scientist and analyst Shane Mohammed yesterday, each giving their own take. Karen will be giving her take later. However, in the meantime, there are just a couple of things that I want to get through. Before I start off the daily review officially, I do want to make mention of one story this morning that is bothering me a little bit. There's not necessarily much, how to say it. It's not an issue per se that's political or government or the economy, but it is a societal issue, or perhaps maybe it's a concern. Of course, crime continues. The murder rate waits on no one, not even the old new commissioner of police. But there is in one of the daily newspapers a report that a 63-year-old gentleman from Laramie, Diopasad Ramsaran, well, it is believed that he died because he was involved in a physical altercation, meaning someone physically attacked him, physically assaulted him, and he was beaten. He survived the encounter only to collapse sometime later. And it is assumed that is the cause of death. The reason for the altercation? Somebody, a neighbor, which actually makes it worse than if it was just a random stranger, but a neighbor in his community, I believe in his street, potentially just a few houses down, asked Mr. Ramsaran for a cigarette. And Mr. Ramsaran said no, because at the end of the day, it's Mr. Ramsaran's cigarette. And he was physically attacked for it to the point of potentially it being the cause of his death. I know that these days, 60s is no longer necessarily considered that old of an age, but regardless, even if he survived, the entitlement of the person who was so infuriated, how dare you not give me your cigarette? It's just a cigarette. Right, it's just a cigarette. So then why do you have to escalate things to this point? Now where you're a suspect in a murder. So perhaps this is a warning on both sides of the equation. On one hand, the entitlement of society on what we believe is ours, even when it is clearly not. Perhaps that's something we need to check within ourselves. And the other thing is, it's just a cigarette. You really want to get entangled with the law, even if you're proven innocent in the end. Keyword there, proven. Because the suspicion is going to be something that hangs over your head that you're not going to be able to get rid of without proof, and even then, the courts of public opinion might still crucify you. Is that worth it? Of course, you could always be found guilty. And that definitely won't be worth it. Now, for more on the current events of our twin island republic, with emphasis on the twin, let's kick off this morning's daily review. criticize the twin is because, well, things Farley says. Sometimes I do wonder if he literally, within the same time frame of speaking about Trinidad and Tobago, forgets that we're still a country all the while, you know, he claims to not want independence. Now, out of all the things that the Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly said when the official launch of his new political party was taking place on Sunday, there were a couple of things that he said. One, he did say, you know, call elections. Now, I actually am not entirely sure how serious he was. I am willing to assume that that was just more of a tongue-in-cheek rallying cry. He wasn't being totally serious. He just wanted to express, look, we feel we're ready. Because he stated that his plan is to win the 2 seats in Tobago and use that as negotiation leverage. More on that later. However, the 2 of the daily papers have somewhat run with it, have taken it seriously. In fact, one has even gone so far as to get commentary from a former PDP supporter, former Farley Augustine supporter, Dr. Varnash James, who we've had on the show, who judges the Chief Secretary not based on his words and communication. No, that's what I do. Dr. James judges him more, it seems, on his performance or lack thereof with regards to Tobago's economy. And Dr. James, an economist, does not want to hear about what was or was not allocated, right? He just wants to hear about performance. Okay, I am not an economist. I am not going to tell him how to judge somebody who he did give his support to and now finds himself in disappointment. That's not the phrase that I'm too concerned about. If the Chief Secretary was being serious about it, I will think not very highly of that idea. But it wasn't in response to the 7-7. It was just him on a political platform speaking to his base and the political base of supporters. Yes, I know it's not one word, but to me it's starting to become a 4-letter word, or at least the word base. Now, what Farley said that I found interesting is that he said that Dr. Rowley is not the Prime Minister of the Tobago House of Assembly. Except any sort of official government document, I do believe that either comes from the Tobago House of Assembly, refers to the Tobago House of Assembly, has anything to do with the Tobago House of Assembly, that also refers to the Prime Minister, is referring to Dr. Rowley. Because, again, conveniently, it seems as though the Chief Secretary somehow forgets that while his position is technically that of the head of a local government executive body. Yes, THA is one of its kind, but potentially not for long. And this, I have heard, was the plan. I was too young at the time to follow the news myself and hear it from the source myself. I'm not even sure. I might have been born when it happened. The THA model was supposed to be taken to other parts of the country. And then the THA would have not been this unique executive that was the only other executive body on the island. It's a local government body in Trinidad and Tobago. That's the nation. And there's one Prime Minister of the nation. He's the Prime Minister of Trinidad and the Prime Minister of Tobago. So de facto, the only person that is the Prime Minister of the THA is Keith Rowley until he is no longer in the office of the Prime Minister as the Prime Minister. Because these days there's so many ministers in the office of the Prime Minister. I have to make that distinction. So I understand on some level what the Chief Secretary is trying to say. He's trying to say Keith Rowley is not the boss here, except technically, legally, he is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. So, in whatever capacity he is the boss of Trinidad, he is also technically the boss of Tobago, whether we like it or not. I mean, again, 40% to half of Trinidad doesn't like him being the Prime Minister of Trinidad. So, while I understand the Chief Secretary is playing political games, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, it's literally just the way the game is played in TNT. The way that I bemoan. It's how it's done in Trinidad, and it's how it's done in Tobago, apparently. Can't have nice, new, better things. The key is, I don't entirely know what the Chief Secretary's objective is here, if he's thought it through. Because here's the thing. The whole idea is to use the 2 seats as leverage to advance Tobago autonomy. First of all, while you were caught up in launching a new political party, remember, I was one of the people who said, I can't remember everybody's specific stance on this, but I was one of the people who reminded and tried to push the point that the THA did not need a political party. I understand the mandate and et cetera, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, let's be real. The voters voted for Farley Augustine. They did not vote for Watson Duke. That's why Farley was at the top of the ticket. They voted for the slate. It's the same slate. The slate didn't get cut in half. It's not Farley with half of the executive. It's not 7 or 8 versus the other half of what remained in the PDP. Everybody left Watson Duke, including the appointed councillors and presiding officer. So, from my perspective, the need to launch a new political party, now we're 2 years away from the next THA election, I believe. It's a little bit more than 2 years. It's every 4 years. And they're within the second year of their term. Okay, I get it. You have to start campaigning now and fundraising and putting things in place. I get that. But it was almost as though at one point at the start of the year, your political campaigning was more important than advancing anything on the agenda, including autonomy. Here is the rub. No one knows what autonomy means. The cynic in me thinks it means, well, I will have more, I meaning whoever is the Chief Secretary of Tobago, I will have more power and authority and the right to more resources. That's what autonomy means. More for me. That's it. But legally, legislatively, what does it mean? If Tobago, one of the things that Farley wants is the ability for Tobago to write its own laws. It makes sense in certain practicalities, except that's not necessarily the only solution. Maybe we'll get back to that in a later date. But the point is, if you want Tobago to have its own legislative making body, will Tobago still participate in central government, parliament, national legislature, depending on how things are worked out? I mean, I don't know, right? What does it mean for autonomy like that? Will the 2 seats and the leverage potentially that Tobago has, will that remain after autonomy? Have you thought that out? Do you have a model or a framework? And then will autonomy be allowed under the current legislative and constitutional framework that we have, or do we need constitutional reform? How is that going to look? How is that going to work? Because you're giving a new body the right to write laws. So I find it interesting that potentially the Chief Secretary's line of thinking and strategy is dependent on leverage that his ultimate goal potentially will remove. if not handled properly. And in the long run, he won't have the leverage. And if he doesn't have the leverage, why would either party in Trinidad, the party of the national parliament, want to give up that advantage that the 2 seats in Tobago represents? And what makes it worse is that his negotiating position is somewhat enfeebled by his go-it-alone strategy, where he is careless with his speech and lumps in the rest of Trinidad with his criticisms of the current administration. You want to criticize the current administration? Fine. Don't say Trinidad. Even them in Trinidad is a bit too broad brush, because you ain't specifying it and you're making all of Trinidad feel as though, why are we the enemy? Trinidad is not just the Red House. Trinidad is not just Port of Spain. Trinidad is not just Port of Spain and San Fernando and Chaguanas and Superior. Trinidad is everywhere, and there are parts of Trinidad that looks at the budgetary allocation to Tobago and says, whoa, we can't even get a fraction of that. So when the chief secretary bemoans of the development of Tobago, I mean, just by the way, you want to make a road, that's nice, but I'm pretty sure, however the process is done, central government needs EMA approval when they want to do things. That's why they had a whole long bacchanal with the Debe Highway. So you have parts of Trinidad that can't even get roads paved. You know, all of last year and before, there was no roadway going on at all. They have flood concerns year after year. Schools not getting their maintenance done. There's a crime problem, and I mean, think about it. Wouldn't the PNM love to have all this extra money lying around to spend on the police so that they could look as though they're doing more with regards to crime? That's basic politics 101. We have this big problem. Everybody is concerned. Throw resources at it. Throw more money at it. Look, we're doing something. But they can't even do that. So it's not just central government. There are parts of Trinidad that are being neglected. We speak about it and talk about it all the time. It's not just Tobago. And these are the things that's going to turn off Trinidadians to the cries and concerns of Tobago. And then my concern is, now how much of the legitimate concerns gets lost in the shuffle because of the politicking? Anyway, I'm over time. I have Karen waiting. Apologies, my dear lady. There was more to say, but we'll have to cut it there. Food for thought, and we could continue if you want to call in and challenge anything that I just said. I haven't even finished what I was saying, but we have to take a break. When we come back, Karen Nishishira joins me on the desk with regards to the results post-local government election. It's not over. Oh, no. Stay tuned to Talking Points. We'll be right back.
We exposed 5 strangers to KFC's delicious chicken to see if any time could be KFC time. And at the first bite, the party began. We repeated the experiment during the day, during business hours, on weekends, with sunshine, with rain. And it's confirmed. KFC's flavor makes anytime KFC time. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Let the Home Store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Chaguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital. And we're back. Talking Point on WESN is joined by one Karen Nunes-Teixeira, the good lady of Talking Point, former Minister of Finance, attorney at law, legal scholar, educator to the legal profession, and educator to quite a few parliamentarians, whether she likes it or not. Karen!
And I would like to think right now, I moved on from that and consider myself more and more a politician since 2005 or whatever. But
the irony, though, unfortunately, is when I first was introduced to you on the previous iteration of the program, just about every guest
that was true.
Basically said, you taught me.
So that was a good thing for me, right? As a politician.
I mean, it did elevate in my mind. It elevated.
Well, not in your mind, but in their mind, it made them
well, in their mind as well, yes.
There you go.
Yes,
that is a positive for me.
Yes.
But anyway, we're not here to talk about that.
No, local government elections.
Right. So I had spoken to you, I had said to you, I wanted to give my take on it. And I have to say there's an article by Rhea Tate. I have to call it out because it was such an excellent article. It was so detailed and, of course, really helps you to understand why I have come to the conclusion eventually that no wonder the PNM the Prime Minister in particular, had a very muted, very restrained response to the election results. And I would say to some extent, so did Kamala. But I think I'm not talking about his supporters, I'm talking about he himself. And I think as a very experienced politician, over 30 years of experience, he understood what those elections meant. And I will say this simply. In 2019, that's the last time we had the local government elections. And this is, unfortunately, was called in August because the Privy Council had to intervene and tell the Prime Minister that you are not the government cannot make that decision, it is the Parliament. So that wasn't such a good thing. That was not a good to come out the gate. But when we say 7-7, that's not unexpected because the areas in which the PNM dominates are in the Port of Spain. They have dominated in Point Fortin, Arima, Digger Mountain, and that has been their usual areas of dominance. And the same thing will go for the UNC. But the difference is this time around. Okay, so one, the voter turnout. It went from 34% in 2019 to 30.34% in 2020. What does that say? Is it a disaffection, a lack of interest? I don't think so, because people are very concerned about the potholes, and they're very concerned about the drains, and they're very concerned about the maintenance of their local electoral area. They're very much concerned about that. So I think it says more than that. That's the first point, the turnout. Secondly, as in the local government election in 2019, the UNC by far won the popular vote. I think the UNC got 333,000 to the 303,000 to the PNM. I could be corrected, but I know they got the popular vote. Again, they got the popular vote. The article to which I spoke gives you the breakdown, and it's a significant difference between both parties. I think the PNM got 171, and I don't want to say that it's wrong.
The PNM got 130.
131,
and the UNC got 173.
Okay, so that's a big...
And change.
Okay, so that again...
So it's 131 to 174.
Right, so what we know is the popular vote, and that comes about really, to a large extent, by how the electoral districts are drawn up. Electoral districts are not how the constituencies are drawn up, are they? And let's just stick to the electoral. So one, they got the popular vote again. Two, the turnout was significantly lower than last election, which is not a good thing. Three, how it came about that we had the election in August is because the Privy Council had to put the government in its place and tell them that you cannot make that decision. It's Parliament to decide whether you're going to extend the life, and it has to be the new councillors, not the ones that are serving now. We have to wait for the government, the local reform. I think it has very good provision. I think they borrowed a lot from Jamaica, but this government has a reputation of not implementing, so we'll see. But coming to where I feel that the changes have been significant in the UNC's favor, Arima. Now, I don't know if they've resolved it yet, but Arima was 7-0 for the PNM. This time, apparently, the UNC got one of the seats. That is significant. They added on 2 more seats in this election from 139 to 141. One was in Couva. UNC got all, 15 out of 15. They added on one in Miaro. They got all that additional seat. But what must worry you, apart from Arima, which is a borough corporation, is San Fernando. You got to really get worried about that one. Because when you see that the PNM in 2019 got 6 out of the 9 seats, this time 5, the UNC got 4 out of the 9. That has to say something to the population. You cannot discount it. So between the increase, as far as I am concerned, in the electoral voting in favor of the UNC, even though we ended up with 7-7, because that is how the electoral districts are distributed. Sandy Grande, the Sandy Grande Corporation, I think it went in their favor from 5-3 to 6-2. Everything seems to be going in favor of the UNC, even if it was 7-7. Read the writing on the wall. And then on top of all of what I have just said, NTA, I'm not going to give my personal opinion about Mr. Griffith, but the fact of the matter, for him to have received nearly 16,000 votes, I didn't know it was that much until I read today's papers, it was nearly 16,000, but he only contested 10 electoral districts. To get 16,000, and you know who he got it from? He got it from the PNM, because most of those electoral districts were not contested by the UNC. I belong to one of them. I had 3 choices, PNM, PEP, or NTA. So for him to have made that type of inroad in a short period of time that he did, tells you the level of disaffection even among the so-called the areas in this country which people say the PNM till they're dead. Don't find NAR with 33.3, never take it out your mind. And so between the NTA and the final point I'll make, so low voter turnout, popular vote went back to the UNC as it had done before. They did make inroads, and significant inroads was Arima, and significant inroad is San Fernando, both a borough and a city corporation. And in others, like as I said, San Grande, they also increased, although they will not, they increased their electoral numbers in the San Grande corporation. That is a big, that is saying something. And then in the back of all of that, so we dealt with Gary Griffith. Then you have Farley Augustine. Don't you know, politicians, people must not underestimate politicians. I will just say that. And Farley Augustine had a big meeting, and look what he called in his party, the Tobago People Party. He's not mixing matters, you know. He's not trying to tell you that I'm trying to get Trinidad, you know. And you know why? First, he is thinking of the national elections. So yes, in a sense, is this a referendum on the national elections? A day in politics is a lifetime. But all the cues and signs are there that the People's National Movement are in trouble. And he is being very strategic. He said, he knows the Prime Minister is not calling the national elections. But the last elections, what was the results? 22-19. And the swing vote, I got the data, the swing vote was far in favor of the UNC than it was on the PNM. In fact, the swing vote went down for the PNM by 2.7%. And the swing vote in favor of the UNC, did I say it right? The PNM, it went down by 2.something%, and with the UNC, it went up by about 7% in the last elections. And so when Farley Augustine tells him, call the national elections, he doesn't really expect the Prime Minister to do that. What he's trying to tell the Prime Minister, you see the electoral districts you're dealing with? Of course you're going to win Port of Spain, but Port of Spain is not a constituency. You understand? It's not a constituency.
In the national?
Yeah, but that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, no, I just want
right? And in San Fernando, it's not a constituency. And he knows that his 2 seats matter a lot. And if you go in any man's house and search in his house, if you go in and harass his wife with a driving permit, if you're doing those things that seem to be very aggressive towards the person, Farley Augustine, not only his party, but to the person, Farley Augustine. Politics are strange bedfellows. This is 2023. I don't know what will happen in the next 2 years. Look at how Gary and Carmen make up. Look how he waited.
Jack Warner.
Jack Warner. So I am not going to put my head on a block and say, I could tell you what will happen. But what I'm saying now is that he has 2 seats he feels sure about. And when you look at the elections with NAR, those 2 seats darn well matter, because the last election, if 2 seats had gone to the UNC or 2 seats had gone by way of coalition to the UNC, the PNM would not have been in power.
Now, I agree with you in the sense that, and it's a reasonable case to make, because the PNM are the incumbents, and they have to do well in order to keep getting re-elected, and they haven't been doing well, right? I mean, that's more or less what talking about has been saying for the last 8 months to a year. It's been successive controversies that have not been resolved. With that said, my issue is, and I'll leave Farley aside, because there's several minor details that I don't necessarily agree with you on that, like the license office thing. I have heard, I could be wrong, I could be very wrong, but I have heard his wife was driving without a license.
But she wasn't. Nobody's saying she wasn't.
Right,
Many people are in that position.
And the key is to say that it is a central government sending the license officers to harass her. Well, Farley is making a similar mistake in saying, I want your tactics to be cleared through me. Okay, inform me of what's going on. So that's a blah, 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 right? But you're right in the sense that at least no one could argue with the reasonableness of Farley thinking he should be confident. You know, even if it's not guaranteed, he has a good chance to get both those seats, and both those seats could be the turning point. And the UNC, in theory, should be in a prime position to replace the PNM because of the successive amounts of controversies that the government has been inflicting upon itself. The only thing to me with regards to this local government election being a referendum or a litmus test or a preview to the general is the fact the low voter turnout. That, to me, makes the situation be a bit less clear, because that wrinkle now, it's not as though, yes, the UNC got the popular votes, but, and I think you said it before, the UNC might get the popular vote in the local government election, but it's not going to necessarily work out quite in the same ratios and the same numbers in the general. So is it that trend, well, it's not a trend, it's one. Well, in the sense of this cycle, it's one. In the sense of the local, it is a trend.
Okay,
but
so
will that carry over to the general election?
Okay, so I have a response for you.
Yes.
On two things, perception is reality. Many people forget their license. It doesn't matter that she did or did not leave her license at home. What matters is that her husband brought it for, what's wrong with that? Why are you sending Earl Christopher when he's saying that the reason why he would not, he was being taped in March, and they released the tape, he's saying that the reason why he was being taped because they were going to use that as bribery to get him to do what he wanted.
The tape was, it is believed that the tape is not from March, but from last year.
Can I make my point? My point being that, why are you so, in crime, as I understand it, when you have a person bribing, is he briber and he bribee? And it seems that the only person they're interested in is the bribee, who did actually not only not attempt to, which could be a crime, didn't do anything. Why are you not sending your group to go after the person who he alleges was the one putting pressure on him? And just let me finish. I mean, you know, just let me finish my point now. It's not a question of what you believe, Sean, with all due respect. It's perception and reality. And coming into can I just use the two differences between the PNM and UNC results in terms of numbers? Because numbers are all that really matter at the end of the day. Numbers are really all that matter. It is possible for one to say the UNC does not have the public purse, they do not have the capacity to give you a CPEP job, a URP job, or they do not have the capacity to make sure they get the funding for local government in the same way that a PNM-controlled corporation can. So they are at a gross disadvantage. So they do not have the carrot that the PNM has. The PNM has the power of the purse. So one could possibly interpret, when you look at that low turnout, who is it that went out to vote? That's what you have to ask yourself. Who is it on both sides? On the UNC side, it is more and less likely that it is CPEP and URP workers as much as people who are committed to the UNC, and which will translate into the national elections, because the low turnout is what has happened last election. It was 34%. Now on the PNM side, what does the low turnout, can it be interpreted? They have the power of the purse. And if I have to speak, if I may just make this one point, Sean.
I'm not gesturing or trying to interrupt you, Karen.
Okay, Sean. If I can just make this one point, with the internal party elections that was held, when it came to the Prime Minister, who was an opposition leader, being challenged by Penny Beckers, who he sent off to the United Nations, by such a cooler he is. Anyhow, I can't remember how many, but let's say it's about 15,000 votes he got, and she got about 1,000, right? Between the time when he was challenged as opposition leader to when I went and challenged unsuccessfully, the numbers had gone to increase by 30,000. So instead of 90,000 members, you had 120,000. And yet, when you look at the turnout, instead of getting the 15,000, 7,000 people did not vote. 7,000 people did not vote. And you should say more than 7,000 people didn't vote, because they got 30,000 more people. When the Prime Minister went in his own constituency in the afternoon, after 3 days to allow people to vote, 144 people, the National Convention, 14,000 people according to Mr. Imbert, and only 844 people vote. You know what you could conclude, what is a reasonable conclusion to come to? That what you see voted on the PNM side is a lot of CPET and URP workers and persons who are indebted to the PNM, and the rest of the population disgusted with them and will not vote. What you see on the UNC side are people who do not have that carrot, but who are committed. There's a big difference in the motivation on both sides, and that you've got to take into account. And the Prime Minister, I am sure he's doing the numbers and realizing that, because, by the way, before I finish on the internal elections, and I wrote a letter on that, to show the pressure they put on people to succumb, and I imagine they might have done it with the public.
Well, I'm going to have to interrupt you there,
yeah,
because we're going to have to take a break.
Yeah, but I want to make that point, though.
So when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. I mean, I agree, it's reasonable, but, well, you will get to finish your point, I'll get to respond after this here on Talking Point WSN. We'll be right back.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
On the next episode of Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day.
One of the first tips is putting God in the midst of it, and He's going to direct you. Another tip would be making sure that your business is in line legally.
Didn't you have a waka?
Yes, I used to borrow a waka.
You used to borrow a waka. And then you said to him, why don't you purchase? Or she purchased a waka for you.
Yes.
Listen to me. Look now, man.
Things are changing around us at the drop of a hat. And technology continues to challenge us. But not only is technology challenging us, but the changes in the world, in our global environment, is also challenging us in a significant way.
Like a tree, you have survived every kind of harsh weather. To believe that you can flourish again after a major catastrophe may be difficult, but by the grace of God, you will flourish again like a palm tree.
An encore of Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, the conversation continued after the break, so we have to catch up, all of you viewers, with where we left off. So Karen, you were finishing a point before we try to...
I don't remember what the point is now.
Yeah, I'm
actually,
I
know what the point is.
Okay,
I know
go
what
ahead.
the point was. It was using, because at the end of the day, it's the numbers that matter. And why I say you can't just look, well, first of all, we got a 30% turnout. Let's see how many people voted for the PNM, how much numbers voted the PNM as against the UNC, so then you could find out where the low voter turnout was more prevalent.
Who got more of the drop? Was the drop with the PNM or the drop with the UNC? Split or only one party?
There you go.
Right.
So that's the first thing we have to, and certainly it seems to me with Gary Griffith, with NTA getting nearly 16,000 votes, and he has aligned himself with the UNC, I'm more inclined to think that it's the other way around. But we don't have the data, but it's only a reasonable, right now it's August, the whatever, and all we could do is make projections, and we do the projections based on the data available to us. We could say pigs could fly, I could say a lot of things, but I think what we are saying now, you have to look at what is reasonable. And at this stage, that is what I am putting forward is San Fernando loss, the Arima loss, the winning the 2 new electoral districts, the nearly 16,000 votes by the NTA, which aligned itself with the UNC and only challenged 10 PNM strongholds mainly, and the low voter turnout and the popular vote going to the UNC as it had in the local. And the other thing I want to say, with national elections, it is correct that not only did the PNM win the elections by a small margin, but also they won the popular vote. But one has to remember that when the Prime Minister called the elections, and I don't blame him to have done that, when he called the elections in September 2020, this world was reeling under COVID-19. COVID-19 was killing people, dropping like flies. Everybody knows somebody who died from COVID. Everybody knows that. So when Nigel, he does the pollster, when he did his polling to find out what were the top 5 issues that the population was concerned of, 65% of the population was concerned about COVID-19. COVID-19 is no longer on the horizon. So now what has come back is the high level of crime, the high level of corruption, which is a form of crime, definitely because it plays out itself on the streets of our country, the income inequality, the middle class that is disappearing because their salaries have not been able to keep up with the cost of living, and apparent disaffection that the government has shown for those at the bottom who you think you would try to uplift. So there are going to be different considerations. But let me just make one point I was going about me. When, and if do not underestimate politicians. When I say to you about the carrot being more on the PNM side than it was on the UN side, for sure, because they have the power of the purse. When we did the internal elections, and they admitted it, and I can't remember his name, Anthony Roberts, they admitted it, we wrote them, and he said it was true. When you go to vote, you vote as number 30. Suppose you vote as number 30. And my name is there, yes, I'm in the right area, yes, I'm number 30, and they cross it out. Then they give you your thing to go and vote in secret ballot in the box. But you know what they did in the internal elections? They stamped number 30 on the booklet. And it is their list, not the EBC list, you know. It's the PNM list. So many people were saying, and a lot of them were CPAP workers and URP workers, who were saying, oh God, afraid. I tell them I'm going to vote X, but they could find out if they want to who I really vote for, because they stamped on my booklet that was supposedly secret the number that I voted, so they could cross-reference that. So what I am trying to say, do not underestimate the power of the CPAP and URP on the voter turnout on the PNM side. And we have to wait to see how many people, and NTA has to go on the UNC side because they have a coalition and an understanding. So when you're adding up the figures, put the NTA and the UNC together and see how many people voted there. And then go and look at the PNM and see how many voted there, and then do your percentage. And then find out where the low voter turnout really was.
So just as an aside, as you referenced the PNM internal elections, I would like to point out that the Public Relations Officer and Minister of Local Government was nowhere to be seen at Balise's house, if my memory serves correct. A very interesting phenomenon that somebody else basically had to carry out his role. It makes you wonder what was the point of those internal elections in the first place. Now, I get what you're saying. I think my issue is, I honestly expected, if we're going to see the voters send the sitting government a message, that it would have been a stronger message. Because I agree with you, all of the factors that you're pointing out, that is aligning itself to give the PNM a very hard time, because people are going to be upset with them over a variety, a long list of things, from crime to the economy to their own local government situation, to roadworks, school infrastructure, public utilities,
local government,
the Coast Guard,
the DPP,
the situation with the
scanners,
the
Attorney General 1, Attorney General 2.
Exactly.
So when
you add it up,
procurement legislation, the Revenue Authority, the property tax.
Right, so the point is
the dragon field is not going to be happening because Maduro not going to be talking. No Shell shareholder is going to agree for Shell to build that pipeline with Biden saying, giving you only 2 years provisional agreement and telling you that to be in
right. So
that natural gas is our economy.
Okay, my point is,
that's our economy.
I am actually surprised at the PNM. If this is the sign of the momentum against them, that they got away, but keeping the 7-7. Now, I'll say this, Gary Griffith started off his general election campaigning yesterday, I think, on a good note. He was not combative. He did not spew a lot of vitriol.
Things that what the PNM did, like calling people cockroach and roxo and termite.
No, but he honestly.
No, I'm saying that's what the PNM did.
Right,
so
but
he learned from their mistakes.
He did not do so, and
yeah,
it tells me that the NTA, hopefully, Gary is learning from the mistakes of everybody that came before him.
PNM, termite, calling your own member a termite. Yes, but you are being dismissive of what I'm saying, it makes me concerned about where your head is.
But Karen, at the end of the day, the PNM is not the only party that uses language like that. They're not.
My God, but you don't use it against your own party member. You do not use it against your own party member. You use it against Kamala.
I understand that.
Right, so stop defending the indefensible.
I'm not debating that point. I am trying to make a different point, Karen.
Okay, what's
your point? And that is that Gary Griffith, he has started off on the right foot. He has 2 years to go. As much as he does not have all of the infrastructure and all of the the history of the other two parties, you know, if he plays his cards right, he might have because remember, the COP in their first general election, yes, Gary did a local, but this was a very quick thing, right? He has a general coming up. The COP in their first general did not win a seat. Gary could potentially buck that trend. Yes, he had a local government, but in his first general, there is always the chance, assuming that the voters are not stuck to this two-party system, right? There's always a chance that they will look to give support to other parties. And that also could change the dynamic. We have 2 years to go. I do agree with you, though, that the momentum is against the PNM. And I do believe that the PNM understands that, and I don't know what they are necessarily going to be able to do. They have 2 years. I don't know what they're necessarily going to be able to do to try to turn that momentum around. However, I think this is also a message to the UNC. Don't just sit back and expect to win automatically, right? You campaign for the local government elections. You got more votes than the PNM, but the way how the mechanics work, you only got 7 seats. You need to do more.
Sean, like you didn't hear me say to you that in San Fernando City Corporation, they got an additional seat. You didn't hear me say that in a Rima, which was 7-7, that they got a seat. You didn't hear me say that the two
I did hear you say.
So therefore, wait, not only that, Sean, that Gary got 16,000, which is
Karen,
aligned to the UNC.
I didn't say that the UNC doesn't have a chance in next general.
But
I
then
said they cannot sit back
and they're not,
and
obviously.
automatically expect to win.
But
It's not as though
not.
it's not as though the situation is perfect for them.
Oh my God. If it is obvious if they were so successful that they were not sitting back. Why are you saying that? Who's sitting back with the PNN? Not them.
Part of it also
it's 9 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock.
Part of it also is because you've interrupted me more than once, by the way. Part of it also
I thought this half an hour was for me to talk and to give me an opportunity to air my view, because you have the whole show to do that.
That is true.
So,
but
okay, I forgot that was
I'm trying to get what I have to say for you to respond, but we'll never get there apparently. So
You'll get it tomorrow when I'm not on the show.
No, but then you can't respond.
It doesn't matter. Then even better. It's even better for you, so you won't even get my you won't even get my answer.
You see, I actually want the response, folks. She doesn't want to respond. What am I supposed to do? All right.
9:01.
It's 9:01 and they're screaming in my ear. Let's take a break. When we come back, of course, we'll open up the phone lines for you, the viewers, to weigh in. And I will continue while we don't have any phone calls. So if you don't want me to talk, call in. Stay tuned to Talking Points.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sarah Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. ABC Chief Election Officer responds to Kamla on special ballot irregularities. UNC requests to recount for 11 electoral districts. And regionally, fiery explosion kills 3 people and injured over 30 in the Dominican Republic. Now for the details. The Chief Election Officer at the Elections and Boundaries Commission, Fern Narcis-Scope, officially responded to a request made by the opposition leader, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, for an investigation into special ballot irregularities. In her response to the opposition leader, Narcis-Scope explained that there was no provision in the election rules for the sealing of the ballot boxes at special polling stations established by the Commission, in accordance with the Election Rules 76 of the Representation of the People's Act, Chapter 201. Narcis-Scope advised that it had become the practice for special presiding officers to use ballot boxes to transport the sealed envelopes, but there is no requirement in law to either use ballot boxes or to seal them. Narcis-Scope added that her investigations revealed that as required by law, all the special envelopes are sealed by the special presiding officer, and for matters of safety and security in the transportation, all boxes were locked. In the second complaint made by the opposition leader, that the ballots cast at the Sandigrani police station were not packaged according to the standard procedure, so that the names of some electors could be viewed by the EBC staff who were responsible for sorting the votes and sending them to the respective electoral districts. Narcis-Scope said her investigations revealed that the 11 covering envelopes with the declaration of identity of the special electors, as required by Election Rule 71, were placed in the ballot box at that location, which was then locked and sealed. The United National Congress requested 11 out of 13 recounts received by the EBC. In a media release issued by the Elections Boundaries and Commission, all recounts will begin at 3 p.m. today at the office of the returning officer for the electoral district where the recount was requested. Regionally, a powerful explosion rocked a bustling market near the capital of the Dominican Republic on Monday, killing at least 3 people and injuring more than 30 others as people tried to flee amid the chaos. Authorities said the explosion occurred at a bakery in the city of San Cristobal, which lies just west of Santo Domingo, the country's 911 system said in a statement. Charred cars and debris from several collapsed buildings lined the streets as thick black smoke rose from the city center and enveloped several blocks, prompting businesses to evacuate while crowds gathered to film the aftermath. Some said they thought it was a bomb or an earthquake. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Sarah Ali. Thanks for watching.
This city can't hold me, my vibe's too high, and my heart it told me jump right now, you will touch the sky. Feel my love unfolding like a laughing flame. All who did not know me when not done, they gon' know the name. Million people coming down, dancing to a song. Love is life and life is love, blessings from above. Can you feel the love that's in the air? Well, if you feel it, let me hear you say, dancing, moving, moving everywhere. If you feel it, let me hear you say, na 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 na, eh na 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 na. When I lost and can't find my way, is your love help me elevate? And when they try to block, I still come again. It's the way you lift me up, I could never give it up, no.
This is the way we celebrate independence. This is how it should be done. An event like this brings everybody out. All different race, creed, everything. This is our country. And how is the best way to celebrate our independence? With our national anthem. The vision I had 6 years ago, trying to make people happy. We started this event not to stop. This event must continue. And at independence, we could celebrate it together as a country. Even though the hard things, the struggles, we will always remain together as one people. Thank you.
You gave us the inspiration to be first. We gave you the solutions that put you first. You walked with us side by side, and we continue to serve you with pride. First Citizens celebrates with you 30 years of achieving dreams, shaping success stories, and painting brighter futures together. And together, we'll accomplish so much more. First Citizens, together, 30 and beyond.
Welcome back to Soccer, ladies and gentlemen. So, we are here. It is time. The first chance for you to call in after the local general elections. We did not, local government elections, we did not have an opportunity for you to call in yesterday. However, I would just like to point out again that today Karen is here. So, it's best, if you have any questions for her perspectives, to ask her now as opposed to calling in tomorrow and saying, well, she was talking about this, she was talking about that, and blah, blah, blah. However, whatever you have to say, whether you agree with her or not, please be respectful, because I know that they have people who are diehards for either party and will wonder, well, I don't expect UNC diehards to necessarily take umbrage with Karen, but please be respectful. Yes, I understand you hold your dear leader very, very close to your heart, but in politics, there has to be room for honest speech, dissenting speech, if you want things to be above board and good and all of these important things in a democracy, which we profess to hold dear, but in practice is not always so when political loyalty seems to be more important than actual meritocracy. But the phone lines are on your screen, so call in. Of course, hopefully not too many of you are on vacation. Or not too many of you are anticipating that today will also be 4 hours. No. There's no more 4 hours of talking point. Kyle, when you contacted me yesterday, we were still going.
Okay.
Because Keaton had a whole lineup of people that we could not get the night before, and this is the post-election, right? But so...
One of them was Dr. Shane Mohammed.
Yes, we had him for about 20 minutes or so. It was actually where there was not enough time to unpack everything. I do think, though, you're one of the few voices who's really, Karen is one of the few voices who's really ringing the alarm bells with regards to the government's position, which, again, I believe is more than reasonable. However, we have a call from Diego Martin. So, caller, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Sharon Nunez and to my brother Sean. Good morning to both of you all.
Good morning.
Sean, I mean, you are my boy. You and Keaton. But I would advise you to listen carefully to what Mr. Teixeira is saying. Now, this is the first time in the history of my voting. That is for the second time. I have not voted for the PNM. And that is because of leadership. The point is that she's making some very good points. And I have agreed with her a lot. I think one of the reasons, that's just my opinion, that the low voter turnout is because of, number one, a lot of people died during COVID. And the most of the people died was elderly people, and they are the ones to come out and vote.
That's a good point.
Also, over the years, from 2019 to 2023, a lot of the elderly people died as well.
Yeah.
And also, there are a lot of elderly people who are disabled and cannot come out to vote, and that is a lot to do with both parties, especially with PNM. Because I am an elderly person in the late 70s, and I could understand, that position. So it's difficult to go to. So I think that is the main problem, but it's a cause for concern, and they have to work on it to try and rebuild themselves. But I am agreeing with Mr. Teixeira that I have said it before, Gary Griffith will make a big difference in this thing. Because he has a way of pushing himself and getting his points across. And he has some salient points, and I voted for him. I will not think I'll vote for his party. And the fact is that he has a good chance if he stays and right on course, because he says that he asked the PNM and they refuse him. And that, I think, is detrimental to the party. So everybody got to think carefully what they are doing. But the way the direction is heading like, I regret to say this, is going to be UNC and the next people in the governance. Thank you for taking my call, and have a good morning, both of you.
Thank you, Paula. So, when we were finishing up before the call, well, first of all, with the COVID point, I think that might be a brutal reality that we have to consider. I don't know if it'll account for the 4% drop, but it'll definitely account for a chunk of the drop. But with regards to Gary Griffith, what are the things, though, that you didn't talk about? Because coming out of this, Jack Warner said, well, it's only a two-party system, right? Do you think that Gary will essentially just have to be under the umbrella of the UNC, or will he be a legit independent third party? Hold on to that. We have a caller from Arima. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, caller. You're on the air.
I would like to thank Fali Augustine. If I were the Prime Minister, and I will tell you why. With 75,000 a population, Tobago's income is far less than their expenditure. So you see that shenanigans what he getting on there with? He's punching above his weight. Further to add, if, as the Prime Minister stated, right, in the government dollar, 60 cents is for wages, transfers and subsidies and salaries, 20 cents is to repay debts, and 20 cents is for development. We're looking at $9 to $10 billion per annum to spend on development. Well, it's time he proportion that money and spend Trinidadians' tax-paying dollars on Trinidadians. Because if he doesn't do that and he concentrates on these people in Tobago, want to piss on his back and tell him that it's raining. Well, he would soon find that he and the PNM would not be popular in the next election. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Can I just say something about the transfers?
Yeah.
In regards to transfers and subsidies, included in the transfers are the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, because once money is taken out of the consolidated fund, it's a transfer. And also there's a transfer in the Infrastructural Development Fund. In fact, most of the funding for the Infrastructural Development Fund comes from transfers from the consolidated into the fund, and it is not required to be sent back. So when we talk about transfers and spending money, how the Prime Minister has explained it with some subsidy and transfers, he may not have said that some of that transfer, significant amount of it, goes for infrastructure and goes for the Heritage and Stabilization Fund.
Caller, I agree somewhat with the basic premise of your point. That's what I was talking about earlier. However, don't underestimate the needs of Tobago. It is complicated. It's not straightforward. But we have another caller on the line. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning.
I thank you for taking my call. I have been a regular viewer, listener of this program. But as a former politician, I am finding, I'm agreeing with much of what the invited guest to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I would really wish that Sean, you would give her a chance to say things. You know, she's of more recent vintage than I am, and I would like to hear what she has to say. Please give her a chance, and I'm asking you that kindly. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Okay, caller. Okay, while we're waiting on another call, right? The third party situation. Oh boy, Shogonas on the line. Good morning.
Good day, gentlemen and ladies.
Well, gentlemen, but good morning.
I listened last night to your station covering the election, and apparently nobody in Trinidad knows what local government is about. Although I explained this to you a couple of weeks ago. Local government in Trinidad is to carry out certain local functions on the behest of the central government. Right? That is all. So people talk about this to be the Constitution, don't know what they're talking about. Because the central government has the duty to check them and see they do it. And that is one of the main problems. They don't do it. Because one of the major things they have for infrastructure is the road authorities and these things. And these people don't do the work. You talk about giving other persons a chance. But none of the other parties have talked about doing what is required. Right? So I don't see no choice. We talk about local government reform. What is going on? We give you no details of what it is. From what I can gather, they want local government to maintain government buildings. They can't maintain the road in front of their own buildings. They can maintain government buildings. And if works department cannot do it, right, with all the engineers they have, how given local authority to do it? And the whole thing is a farce, because when the thing was done by Mr. Madden, the major thing on property tax was that the central government property tax should be given to the regional authorities. Madden investigated this. He had a report prepared. He consulted everybody. This is, as I tell you, the government preaching, saying yes. They draft the law to do that. It was a very good law. I saw a copy of the draft. And in the end, when it went to Parliament, it did the opposite. It took away the city and borough's property tax. Right? And the whole thing is a farce. I don't know if you have any questions, Karen.
I want to say in fairness to the
government. She can tell me why it is they change it, because she was the minister.
Yeah, I want to say in fairness to the government now, it's a question of implementation. But the Local Government Reform Act of 2022 does address some of the... Well, you see, but the act is how, it is through the act that
No,
you
the
can...
act's supposed to base on the investigation.
Well...
And they did the opposite of what they agreed. That is my point.
Well, they have said that they've gone to all the different municipal corporations and spoken to the people.
So the politicians scuttle everything.
Well, let me just say this in all fairness, and you know I'm not any defender, but to be in all fairness, I think a lot of the things that they are putting forward are very good ideas. One of them is that councillors will be full-time. You know, you asking people, I was an MP.
Councillors don't need to be full-time.
Well,
they're supposed to be oversight. They're trying to do public service. You have direct cause of the problem.
Yeah, but
the same thing with parliamentarians. Parliamentarians was never full-time.
Okay, can I just say, that's part of the problem. That is part of the problem. Having been an MP and having been in cabinet, it is part of the problem. The councillors simply...
The councillors have made
well, I wouldn't say anything.
Caller, okay.
I finished.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry then.
The thing is, though...
I want to just say that
yes,
the Local Government Reform Act, once it's implemented, has a lot of positive things. It piggybacked on the Municipal Corporation Act, which was passed under the NER government in 1990, and it just extends a lot of the powers. One of the problems in the act, and it recognizes that there is a lot of dual functions. You're saying water delivery, but how does that pony back with WASA, which is the same thing? So there are a lot of things where they have to clarify. But the fact that you're going to allow them to operate as a corporation, the fact that you're going to allow them to get pensions, NIS, full-time employment, and allow them to function effectively at the local government level, I think that's a good thing for the country. I was an MP, and I understood the issues that the councillors went through. They having to do this thing part-time. You cannot do something part-time and trying to hold on your job and trying to take care of bridges, trying to take care of pavements, light up the recreation grounds, getting central government to give you the money. I think the whole, my concern will be the property tax, because the intention is that whatever property tax they collect, when it is proclaimed, they will keep it, and the government will give them a grant to subsidize, as they have always done, what the corporation has. But they have certainly tried to make it far more professional. They've certainly identified in the legislation very clearly the role of the engineer, the role of the CEO, the role of public health, what it is. So I cannot agree with you on the Reform Act. What I will say is I will believe it when it's passed and becomes law.
The minister claims, now we haven't seen the actual implementation, he claims property tax will go to an account direct to the corporation.
Yes, it is. What they've created is a statutory fund called the Corporation Fund. And among all the things, you remember they can fine you. They can fine you when you have with the buildings.
This is the corporation?
Yes, the local corporation have a lot of power. So apart from their power to fine and collect funds, they will also have created a statutory fund called the Corporation Fund, into which all the fines, all the monies they collect from renting on the town hall, etc., and including the property tax, will go into that fund. And to the extent to which the funds that they have collected, because not all corporations are equal in terms of wealth, the government is going to subsidize it with a grant. And I see nothing wrong with it,
I just also like to point out, could you imagine if MPs were supposed to be part-time and MPs are ministers? Could you imagine a part-time worker being an MP who's also a cabinet minister? I don't think it will work anymore. Maybe it worked way back when, but I don't think it will work anymore.
It cannot work.
We have a caller from Digger Martin. Good morning.
I'll just be a minute. I'm really glad that Karen is here this morning and she broke down the election results just as other analysts have done, specifically the difference between each party, the number, the makeup of the voters, the seats won, etc. She spoke of the significance of Sangre Grande, Mayaro, Arima, San Fernando. She brought some clarity because, I don't know, but I found yesterday's show with the four of you was a bit skewed, and Janelle seemed to be cross-examining the guests, particularly Brian Baig. I won't go into any detail. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, caller. Well, Janelle is a member of the PNM. Mr. Baig was... Let me put it this way. How Mr. Baig put the information across and how Karen put the information across is two different things. Right? Now, granted, a lot of us of the other people were not nowhere near as close to charitable to the PNM's position. But it's all about perspectives, and I don't know if Mr. Babe wasn't necessarily prepared with regards to having the same type of analysis of the overall situation, whereas he was just speaking to the local government in a silo, so it didn't come across as well as certain other things. A lot of us yesterday had the opinion that it just wasn't a good look overall.
Well, what I will say is this. I think the Reated article helped me tremendously this morning, I have to say, because I did go on the EBC website, and maybe I'm not looking the right way, or they have a call. So let me
Okay, last call for the morning, and then Karen can finish that point. We have a call from Dabadi. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning.
Morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you. Let me start off by saying that, Karen, I love you very much, and I love the program. But, Karen, this morning, you are not giving your co-host a chance to speak. I think it's really unfair. If you are having dialogue, it should be evenly. And, Karen, you are saying that we lost a REMA. We did not lose a REMA. One seat was tied, and we are waiting on what happens after that. You can't keep saying that. A lot of the information coming out that I'm hearing you all speaking on, you all do not have full information on it. I appreciate the analysis, but let us get facts first before we start making assumptions. Lovely program as usual. Love you both. Have a nice day.
Thank you, caller. So I'll take this opportunity to explain. Karen is here to give her analysis. My contribution to the discussion is just to bounce things off of her for her to then give further analysis. So I appreciate the thought, but to some extent, just don't be alarmed, caller, if Karen has the majority of the speaking time. With that said, I think at the end of the day, her overall analysis is reasonable. I have not strayed from or be inconsistent about that point. I might disagree with some of the details of the analysis, but I think the key is, like, okay, there's going to be a recount. I'll be honest, I don't expect any of the recounts to change the situation. I'll be surprised if it does. I'm not saying it's impossible. And depending on if it's more than one recount reversing decisions, that might be a red flag. That might cause further questions, but I'm not expecting anything to happen. Karen?
Yeah, and I think what the caller said is fair about a REMA, because it was it's being recounted, so that is a fair statement you made. So I will stand, I don't want to say stand corrected as much as to say that's not what the report is saying, but I understand what you're saying. And the other thing too is, I agree at this point in time, we're still in the early days, and so these are just as best as we can use the information that is available to us and make some sort of analysis. Because one of the things I do think that's critical to us really understanding what the local government election means, particularly going forward, is when we look at the low voter turnout of 30%, how many of those persons were from the PNM camp as opposed to the NTA/UNC camp. That is I think that's going to be very critical, because if there's a very low turnout, or much lower turnout on the PNM camp, which I do not know, we have to wait, then I think it says much more about the status of the PNM right now and who it is that went out and voted. And that's just one opinion that we have. I mean, I respect what you have said, and I appreciate that you appreciate my contribution, and it's not set in stone, and we wait to see more information given to us, and then we'll be able to make an even better analysis. And at the end of the day, you know, we don't have a crystal ball. I don't have a crystal ball. All I can do is use the information I have my experience as being a member of parliament, which I know you know, and also being minister and being in a cabinet of this government, and using that information and that knowledge to give my opinion, which is subject to being, you know, different point of view.
And the key is, when we don't have, you know, hard facts on all the facts, and some of those facts we might not ever have, right, the way how things are in this country, then that's where you try to use reason with reasonable assumptions. And again, Karen's assumptions are reasonable, her arguments are reasonable. Note that a lot of the election coverage was analyzing the local government election somewhat in a silo. So similar to what I said about Mr. Baig yesterday, it's somewhat in a silo. Karen is really more advancing her position with regards to the national situation, which she had before this election, right? Which, again, it's to be expected. They are the incumbents, right? Things are not going well on multiple fronts. You can't say that, oh, well, it's all roses here. My disagreement comes where I think the UNC needs to be better if they want to ensure and put this thing away. Or maybe Farley will be the swing votes within 2 years. Maybe something very random that nobody could predict will happen within these 2 years, and then it's all up in the air and nobody knows anything.
Let's hope so.
I don't know.
Let's hope so.
But Karen, no, I can't agree with that.
Let's hope so.
I mean, we could get something better than what we have now. Right? That's what random means. We could get something, in theory, worse. So, this is where you're supposed to say we can't get much more worse than this.
No, I just say let's hope so. That's what I say.
Okay. Folks, that's where more or less we have to end the show for today. I appreciate the passion that the callers had on the topic. And I will just say this, and I think my negativity for the whole overall situation comes from the fact that I guess Karen...
we love each other. Just by the way, we do love each other.
No, but Karen, I think
and
you will
we have
agree...
these fights on the phone many times.
But Karen,
on the pavement many times.
I think you will agree with me. You would hope that the general election would have a high voter turnout.
I hope so.
Right? We don't want a minority of voters to determine something as important as who's going to run the country for 5 years.
No, we don't.
So, folks, with that said, we will continue to encourage you to get involved, whether it is talking to your friends and family, and definitely voting, no matter how much you think your vote does not count. Trust me, with the low voter turnout that we saw Monday, your vote potentially could have counted a lot more if you came out. So, Karen, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All of our callers, thank you for calling in. And of course, this conversation topic will be ongoing as we ramp up to 2025. And Karen will be...
As Sean and I got on the pavement and continued.
All right. Let's end the show there. Folks, have a good day today, as my coach always says, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Goodbye.
WESN.
I'm Andy Johnson, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at Westmore, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
This city can't hold me, my vibe's too high, and my heart it told me jump right now, you will touch the sky. Feel my love unfolding like a laughing flame. All who did not know me when not done, they gon' know the name. Million people coming down, dancing to a song. Love is life and life is love, blessings from above. Can you feel the love that's in the air? Well, if you feel it, let me hear you say, dancing, moving everywhere. If you feel it, let me hear you say, na 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 never give it up, no.
This is the way we celebrate independence. This is how it should be done. An event like this brings everybody out. All different race, creed, everything. This is our country. And how is the best way to celebrate our independence? With our national anthem. The vision I had 6 years ago, trying to make people happy. We started this event not to stop. This event must continue. And at independence, we could celebrate it together as a country. Even though the hard things, the struggles, we will always remain together as one people. Thank you.
You gave us the inspiration to be first. We gave you the solutions that put you first. You walked with us side by side, and we continued to serve you with pride. First Citizens celebrates with you 30 years of achieving dreams, shaping success stories, and painting brighter futures together. And together, we'll accomplish so much more. First Citizens, together, 30 and beyond.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content. WESN, covering West, East, South, and North. WESN, we entertainment, sports, and news. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105, and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
That's preventing any form of independent verification on the ground.
In other world news, Germany's government has approved a plan to decriminalise the possession of small amounts of marijuana. The legislation permits anyone over the age of 18 to become members of so-called cannabis clubs and buy the substance for recreational use. If it gets the green light by Parliament, the bill will then become law, making Germany one of the most liberal countries in Europe when it comes to drug policy. France 24's Antonio Kerrigan has been taking a look for us at some of the different rules currently on the continent.
Dutch coffee shop culture is often held up as an example by pro-legalisation campaigners, where the drug is sold legally to adults since 1976. Possession of up to 5 grams and growing up to 5 plants is also safe from prosecution. But the Netherlands are now far from alone. In 2021, the Maltese Parliament passed the Authority on the Responsible Use of Cannabis Bill. Met with jubilation, this legalised the use of recreational cannabis and allowed for the creation of cannabis clubs, operating on a non-profit basis, where members could purchase a limited quantity of the drug to be consumed in private. To prevent mass cannabis tourism, this only applies to Maltese residents. Spain is among the countries with a policy of decriminalisation. It's not legal, but possession and consumption in private spaces are not prosecuted. In public spaces, it can still carry a hefty fine. And sale of the drug for recreational use is a criminal offence, enforced by prison sentences. France, Hungary and the UK are among those still upholding the toughest bans. But even France, where the consumption of the drug is punishable by a €200 fine, it is on trial as a medical drug until 2024, and non-medical CBD, one of the active ingredients in the so-called devil's lettuce, has been authorised for sale in the country.
Next, let's go to Hawaii on the programme, where recovery efforts are ongoing after the wildfires on Maui killed at least 106 people. That makes them the deadliest fires in the US in more than a century. Efforts to identify some of the victims have been difficult, and some survivors are still waiting for news about their missing loved ones. Brian Quinn has the latest.
U.S. Marines land on Maui, joining the National Guard, Coast Guard, and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as recovery efforts continue. In the historic seaside town of Lahaina, nearly every building is destroyed. Entire neighborhoods now nothing but rubble and ash. As volunteers work to provide basic necessities, survivors are struggling to process the aftermath of the U.S.'s deadliest wildfire in more than a century.
I was devastated. I was a wreck. I needed mental health, and I considered myself a strong leader, but it broke me. It still breaks me. This is what keeps me going, helping people. A lot of us are at that stage.
Officials on the island say that as of Monday, only a quarter of the disaster zone had been fully searched for bodies. The death toll is expected to rise. Hundreds of people are believed still missing. Many residents have expressed frustration at an apparent lack of official disaster preparedness. Warning sirens failed to sound as the fire bore down on the town, with road closures trapping drivers as they tried to flee and fire hydrants running out of water.
Nothing would make us more pleased if we couldn't go back in time and have a lot more protection from sirens. We will do all we can to get more water. We will do all that we can to get more warnings for people.
Investigations are currently underway into the cause and response to the fire. High winds and drought worsened by climate change, along with the rapid spread of flammable invasive grasses, have made wildfires a growing concern on Maui in recent years.
Now, July has been confirmed as the hottest month on planet Earth since records began in 1940. Meanwhile, in the Antarctic, sea ice has also reached its lowest level. This was last month as well. With a look at what the impact of that might be, here's France 24's Peter O'Brien.
It's the dead of winter in the southern hemisphere, but Antarctica's sea ice is no longer reaching the great expanse it once did. This July, the ice shelves were 1.5 million square kilometers short of their surface area the same month last year.
Warm water is melting parts of the sea ice, and there have been strong winds in some basins, reducing the formation of ice flows.
Research suggests that a major deep ocean current has been slowing down significantly because of the melting ice. It could directly change the weather we're used to seeing.
If the North Atlantic current called AMOC slows down, the Gulf Stream also slows down. The Gulf Stream is what allows Bordeaux to have much warmer weather than Montreal, even though they're the same latitude.
Some studies say temperatures have risen enough to trigger the collapse of the ice sheet in West Antarctica already. The melting of this alone would lead to 4 meters of sea level rise.
And we end the programme then with some football for you, because England have confirmed their place in their first Women's World Cup final. They beat host nation Australia 3-1 and will play Spain in a bid to lift the trophy on Sunday. With more on today's semi-final, here's our Australia correspondent, Rochelle Harrison-Pless.
What a disappointment for tournament co-hosts Australia, bowing out after losing to England 3-1. The reigning European champions were dominant tonight. They controlled the tempo from the get-go. Super solid. They broke down the Aussie back line, broke down the Aussie rhythm, and that was reflected in the score. It was England's Ella Toone who scored the first goal towards the end of the first half. In the 63rd minute, Australia captain Sam Kerr fired in an equaliser. But just minutes later, England regained their rhythm, taking the lead again and eventually making it 3-1. Well, the Lionesses have done it. They will now face Spain's La Roja in Sunday's final clash. For both countries, this is the first ever Women's World Cup final. Now, of course, England will have their star striker and key player Lauren James back after she had served a 2-match ban. But we should also look out for Spain's Salma Parayuelo, a 19-year-old revelation. She was so crucial in the knockout matches against the Netherlands and Sweden. As for Australia, this is certainly not the result they were hoping for, but the Matildas will now play Sweden for 3rd place.
And that's a wrap then for this news programme. Thanks for watching, and do stay with us here on France 24.
Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. In this special edition, we're focusing on the world of sports, which, like every sector of life, is still very much dominated by male attitudes when it comes to professional female athletes. So when an elite athlete announces her pregnancy, she'll no doubt receive many congratulatory messages wishing her well on her retirement, that is. But top athletes are slowly managing to prove that motherhood and sporting life are not incompatible, as Natasha Vesnich and Claire Paquelin report.
Every day, Manon does a CrossFit workout. 6 months pregnant, the 31-year-old sailor, who competed in the Tokyo Olympics, is no longer sailing, but stopping sport altogether was out of the question. She's adapted her workouts during her pregnancy.
Franchement, le plus dur, c'est qu'on n'a plus d'air. J'ai besoin de respirer dans un sac plastique.
Manon stopped competing 6 weeks into her pregnancy. She sails boats that go up to 100 kilometers an hour for the International Sailing Grand Prix, Sail GP. It would have been too dangerous during her pregnancy, so she told her team early on.
Ça m'a stressée, c'est sûr, parce qu'on ne sait jamais comment les gens vont réagir. J'avais pas trop de doutes non plus, mais voilà, il y a toujours cette petite anxiété.
She plans to compete in January next year in the United Arab Emirates leg of the Sail GP competition for teams. Until then, she won't be paid.
Il va pas falloir que je prenne trop de temps, je pense, parce que je suis auto-entrepreneur et du coup, en fait, on est payé au jour de navigation, donc quand on navigue pas, on n'est pas payé.
In high-level sport, few women benefit from paid maternity leave.
Cool. Allez, bonne séance.
Getting back into the game after baby is born is another challenge. And yet, at France's National Institute of Sport, we met a gynecologist who told us that the performance of some sportswomen improves after they have a child.
Il y a un renforcement de la motivation, il y a un renforcement aussi de l'épanouissement, puisqu'on y est arrivé. C'était un challenge supplémentaire et on repart sur autre chose, très certainement, avec une meilleure gestion du stress, des émotions, une prise de recul qui va aider l'athlète à performer.
In May this year, Clarisse Agbenienou won her 6th world judo title in the under 63 kilogram category. The French sportswoman sealed her victory, making an A sign for Athena, her 10-month-old daughter, who was in the stands. She also defied anyone who thought it was impossible to combine breastfeeding and high-level sports. Manon, an optimist who's always up for a challenge, says finding childcare will certainly be one.
Donc, ce qu'on aimerait bien dans le circuit CLGP, c'est essayer de demander un système de crèche ou de nounou, parce qu'on est plusieurs mamans dans le même cas, et même des papas. Après, c'est un peu souvent plus facile pour eux, mais de pouvoir venir avec nos enfants, les laisser la journée quand on s'entraîne et les récupérer le soir, ce serait incroyable. Donc on va essayer un peu de pousser là-dessus.
It's a message that needs to be heard by sporting federations and sponsors, so that high-level sportswomen can have children without it being an obstacle in their careers.
And joining me now from Dublin is Rebecca O'Keefe, a basketball player with the Irish Super League and a researcher and writer who specialises in both gender and human rights. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. So much is clearly not known about the female body when it comes to competitive sports. And as we saw there in that previous report, an athlete's professional life should not come to a screaming halt simply because she's a mother. So how do we change attitudes?
Yeah, changing attitudes are slow. But I do think, you know, a gap in the research is largely a large part of this problem. Women's bodies have not been a consideration in a lot of research, and that needs to change. And that comes down to funding. It comes down to, you know, getting more standardized testing. Now, it is hard because, you know, everyone's bodies are different. Everyone will experience menstruation, pelvic health, breast health all differently. But that's not to say education is sorely needed.
And with your experience as an athlete, how did physiological issues impact your performance and training?
Oh, it would have really impacted me. You know, I was playing at a high level from a very young age, but I also suffered and still suffer with bad periods and menstruation and PMS. And back then, the default was just to go on hormonal contraception. So I was put on the pill for so long. And it was never a consideration in my training, in my strength and conditioning, and it was never even kind of talked about. And, you know, I would have had kind of a male-dominated coaching staff, physios, the whole back staff, which is not necessarily a problem, but it just made the conversations harder. And again, no one really wanted to engage in that. But I do think now, having come to the other end of my career, that the conversation is shifting. A lot more people are more attuned to it, to their bodies, to even tracking, to kind of seeing how your cycle and your PMS and everything goes with it and your body is impacting training, or how you can now adapt training to it. So it's just gaining a better understanding of your body and listening to your body. And it's a long way to go, but it's still getting there. The conversation is definitely happening, but we need to press on. It's still quite stigmatised, still quite taboo, it's still under-researched.
Rebecca, let's just take a pause there, because in a welcome move, several French sporting federations are not shying away in talking about menstruation. As our reporters found out, French officials working in the field of wrestling have even launched a scientific program to analyse the menstrual data of their athletes in order to improve their performance.
Long ignored, minimised and swept under the carpet, we know very little about the effects of the menstrual cycle on athletes. 84% say they experience their period as a hindrance. Since 2021, France's top sports institute, INSEP, has been developing a scientific programme to better understand the consequences of periods in order to improve athletes' performance.
Female athletes represent 6 to 13% of subjects in scientific studies, compared with 65 to 82% for men. They're really underrepresented. The project was designed to answer questions on the specific characteristics of female athletes. It's an essential tool for performance, but above all, for health.
14% of elite athletes stop getting their periods altogether, and 55% have a disrupted cycle. Over 100 athletes from 8 federations are taking part in the Empower project. The French wrestling team has been involved since September. Every day, these women answer a questionnaire about their menstrual cycle, but also about their sleep or their diet.
For example, I got my period yesterday. These are questions made for those who are on the pill or who aren't.
Stomach aches, back pain, a decrease in motivation. A number of athletes still suffer in silence because of the lack of information available and because they feel embarrassed about bringing it up. But in a historically male-dominated sports culture, talking more freely about periods has also helped reinforce bonds with the coaching staff.
It's a relief to know that when I'm in an important preparation phase, and that I have a problem, I'm not going to have to deal with it on my own. I know that my sports career won't be negatively impacted because of this problem, because I've got a whole staff team behind me.
Another consequence of periods is weight gain, which is a crucial element in a sport like wrestling, which has strict weight categories. Tournaments, goals and training are tailored to each wrestler for them to perform at the best of their ability on the big day.
When it comes to high-performance sport, we want to be able to act on all the different factors involved as we head towards the Paris Olympics. With that in mind, we're looking at female performance, the impact of periods of contraception, and the physiological impact of periods on the day of competition. We want to be able to take control of the data.
Part of the project's objective is also for French athletes to bring back more Olympic medals in 2024.
And with me is Rebecca O'Keefe, a basketball player with the Irish Super League and a researcher and writer who specialises in both gender and human rights. Rebecca, menstruation is a very normal part of a woman's health, but missing periods is often and very wrongly seen as a normal response to training. And as a result, there's an epidemic of REDS, a syndrome of poor health among many female athletes. But is there enough awareness among both coaches and managers about this?
No, I don't think so. We have a long way to go, and it's more common than we think it is. And missing periods, irregular periods, is one manifestation of REDS. But it's just so problematic that we associate performance and success and typically slimmer bodies with that in mainstream, in sports. And that is a very damaging message to put across. And pursuing such success and performance comes at the risk of your long-term health. And I think the messaging needs to be, the narrative needs to be flipped, that we can perform in your period, you can get PBs, you still can perform at your optimal level with menstruation and with healthy nutrition, healthy sleep. Everything that goes with a holistic approach, and it's not just pursuing these records at the cost of your long-term health.
And we've just seen in that report that some sports officials in France are finally starting to address the issue of menstruation. But it shouldn't just be about improving one's performance, but also, more importantly, the well-being of the athlete. Surely, Rebecca?
Certainly. You know, again, like I said, balancing performance with your long-term health needs to be more considered in sport. And, you know, taking a whole holistic approach to this with your nutrition, your physios, your coaches, everyone getting involved, becoming more aware of your body, listening to your body, adapting training to that is so important. And I think not everyone's going to want to be an elite athlete, no, but even recreational sports, even down to school kids participating in sports, it all has to trickle down to those levels, that you cannot risk your long-term health for success or celebrated success in these sports, because you can still achieve and still perform with your menstruation cycle.
Rebecca O'Keefe, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
And that's all for this edition. We'd love to hear your suggestions for the 51%, so do get in touch via Facebook, Instagram or Twitter. And you can catch our previous episodes on our website. So until our next show, bye for now.
I'm Sarah Morris, France 24 correspondent in Madrid. I cover Spain and Portugal, two countries recovering from painful recessions, but now being challenged by the political and social fallout from those years. Watch me on Live from Paris and France 24 news programmes.
Sarah Morris, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
From North America to the southern tip of Patagonia, join us for a look at the latest political, economic, cultural and social news from the Americas.
Inside the Americas, presented by Jeannie Godula on France 24 and France24.com.
WESN.
Here is the WESN News on the Hour. I am Sierra Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. ABC Chief Election Officer responds to Kamla on special ballot irregularities. UNC requests to recount for 11 electoral districts. And regionally, fiery explosion kills 3 people and injured over 30 in the Dominican Republic. Now for the details. The Chief Election Officer at the Elections and Boundaries Commission, Fern Narcis-Scope, officially responded to a request made by the opposition leader, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, for an investigation into special ballot irregularities. In her response to the opposition leader, Narcis-Scope explained that there was no provision in the election rules for the sealing of the ballot boxes at special polling stations established by the Commission in accordance with the Election Rules 76 of the Representation of the People's Act, Chapter 201. Narcis-Scope advised that it had become the practice for special presiding officers to use ballot boxes to transport the sealed envelopes, but there is no requirement in law to either use ballot boxes or to seal them. Narcis-Scope added that her investigations revealed that as required by law, all the special envelopes are sealed by the special presiding officer, and for matters of safety and security in the transportation, all boxes were locked. In the second complaint made by the opposition leader that the ballots cast at the Sandy Granny police station were not packaged according to the standard procedure so that the names of some electors could be viewed by the EBC staff who were responsible for sorting the votes and sending them to the respective electoral districts. Narcis-Scope said her investigations revealed that the 11 covering envelopes with the declaration of identity of the special electors as required by Election Rule 71 were placed in the ballot box at that location, which was then locked and sealed. The United National Congress requested 11 out of 13 recounts received by the EBC. In a media release issued by the Elections Boundaries and Commission, all recounts will begin at 3 p.m. today at the office of the returning officer for the electoral district where the recount was requested. Regionally, a powerful explosion rocked a bustling market near the capital of the Dominican Republic on Monday, killing at least 3 people and injuring more than 30 others as people tried to flee amid the chaos. Authorities said the explosion occurred at a bakery in the city of San Cristobal, which lies just west of Santo Domingo, the country's 911 system said in a statement. Charred cars and debris from several collapsed buildings lined the streets as thick black smoke rose from the city's center and enveloped several blocks, prompting businesses to evacuate while crowds gathered to film the aftermath. Some said they thought it was a bomb-on earthquake. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Sarah Ali. Thanks for watching.
We exposed 5 strangers to KFC's delicious chicken to see if any time could be KFC time. And at the first bite, the party began. We repeated the experiment during the day, during business hours, on weekends, with sunshine, with rain, and it's confirmed. KFC's flavor makes anytime KFC time. KFC, it's finger licking good.
WESN.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at Westmore, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
My name is Carl Media, and I'm the founder and the host of Ever Increasing Voice Ministries. Join me every Saturday and Sunday on WESN, this powerful station, at 9 a.m. on Saturdays, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. nightly. Also on Sundays, I'll be on at 7 a.m., 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at night time. When you come here, we are getting people heavenly ready.
This city can't hold me, my vibe's too high, and my heart it told me jump right now, you will touch the sky. Feel my love unfolding like a laughing flame. All who did not know me when not done, they gon' know the name. Million people coming down, dancing to a song. Love is life and life is love, blessings from above. Can you feel the love that's in the air? Well, if you feel it, let me hear you say, dancing, moving everywhere. If you feel it, let me hear you say, na 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 na, eh na 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 na.
When they try to block, I still come again. It's the way you lift me up. I could never give it up, no.
This is the way we celebrate independence. This is how it should be done. An event like this brings everybody out. All different race, creed, everything. This is our country. And how is the best way to celebrate our independence? With our national anthem. The vision I had 6 years ago, trying to make people happy. We started this event not to stop. This event must continue. And at independence, we could celebrate it together as a country. Even though the hard things, the struggles, we will always remain together as one people. Thank you.
Over me, take me to the river, take me to the river, wash over me music, wash over me.
You gave us the inspiration to be first. We gave you the solutions that put you first. You walked with us side by side, and we continued to serve you with pride. First Citizens celebrates with you 30 years of achieving dreams, shaping success stories, and painting brighter futures together. And together, we'll accomplish so much more. First Citizens, together, 30 and beyond.
We are WESN, the premier platform for Caribbean content.
WESN, covering West, East, South and North. WESN, We Entertainment, Sports and News. WESN, available on Greendot 7, Amplia 118, Airlink 17, Bmobile 107, Digicel 21, ICNTT 105 and Flow 110. Connect with us at WESNCC or stream online at www.wesncc.com. WESN, your premier platform for Caribbean content.
Because of past missions, the extent of the violence, and also because of a lack of a stable elected government. Kenya last month said it was considering sending 1,000 troops to help Haiti's police force. But its own force has recently come under scrutiny for human rights abuses in Kenya.
Now, meanwhile, the government in Germany has approved a plan to decriminalise the possession of small amounts of marijuana. The legislation permits anybody over the age of 18 to become members of so-called cannabis clubs and buy the substance for recreational use. If it gets the green light by Parliament, the bill will become law, making Germany one of the most liberal countries in Europe on drug policy. Antonia Kerrigan has been taking a look for us at some of the different rules on the continent.
Dutch coffee shop culture is often held up as an example by pro-legalisation campaigners, where the drug is sold legally to adults since 1976. Possession of up to 5 grams and growing up to 5 plants is also safe from prosecution. But the Netherlands are now far from alone. In 2021, the Maltese Parliament passed the Authority on the Responsible Use of Cannabis Bill. Met with jubilation, this legalised the use of recreational cannabis and allowed for the creation of cannabis clubs, operating on a non-profit basis, where members could purchase a limited quantity of the drug to be consumed in private. To prevent mass cannabis tourism, this only applies to Maltese residents. Spain is among the countries with a policy of decriminalisation. It's not legal, but possession and consumption in private spaces are not prosecuted. In public spaces, it can still carry a hefty fine. And sale of the drug for recreational use is a criminal offence, enforced by prison sentences. France, Hungary and the UK are among those still upholding the toughest bans. But even France, where the consumption of the drug is punishable by a €200 fine, it is on trial as a medical drug until 2024, and non-medical CBD, one of the active ingredients in the so-called devil's lettuce, has been authorised for sale in the country.
Well, we end the programme now with some football news because England have confirmed their place in their first Women's World Cup final. They beat host nation Australia 3-1 and will now play Spain in a bid to lift the trophy on Sunday. With more on today's semi-final, here's our Australia correspondent, Rochelle Harrison-Pless, who's at the stadium in Sydney.
What a disappointment for tournament co-hosts Australia, bowing out after losing to England 3-1. The reigning European champions were dominant tonight. They controlled the tempo from the get-go. Super solid. They broke down the Aussie back line, broke down the Aussie rhythm, and that was reflected in the score. It was England's Ella Toone who scored the first goal towards the end of the first half. In the 63rd minute, Australia captain Sam Kerr fired in an equaliser, but just minutes later, England regained their rhythm, taking the lead again and eventually making it 3-1. Well, the Lionesses have done it. They will now face Spain's La Roja in Sunday's final clash. For both countries, this is the first ever Women's World Cup final. Now, of course, England will have their star striker and key player Lauren James back after she had served a 2-match ban. But we should also look out for Spain's Salma Parayuelo, a 19-year-old revelation. She was so crucial in the knockout matches against the Netherlands and Sweden. As for Australia, this is certainly not the result they were hoping for, but the Matildas will now play Sweden for 3rd place.
That's Rochelle Harrison-Pless for us at the stadium in Sydney. And that's a wrap for this news programme. Thank you for watching.